And then you want to hit record on the
I don't
go to
think we need
meeting
to,
just
'cause
in
we did it on
case.
that. I don't think we need to do both.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my allergy attack. Good evening. Calling to order the March 16th Harwich Housing Committee meeting, which you can access by remote means on gotomeeting.com, or you can dial in to 872-240-3212 using access code 902-703-021. Claudia, go ahead.
Oh, no, this is your meeting, you are,
No, but I'm seriously having an allergy attack.
okay.
Anyway, we're approving the minutes.
Take a roll call again? Did we take a roll call?
Oh, right. We have to do that. Members of the committee. Claudia is here.
Claudia
Give her name and
Williams.
say aye or...
Yes. Say your name and say aye, present, whatever.
Claudia Williams, present.
Mary Maslowski, present.
Elizabeth Harder, present.
Art Bowden, present.
Alrighty. Now, we have the minutes from the meeting of February 13th. Do I have a motion to accept them?
Oh, and just so you know, sorry, I had spelled Art's name incorrectly, so those are the only changes I made to the one I would be submitting.
Okay.
Okay.
So I move that we adopt the minutes from the meeting of, what was the date on the top?
13th.
13.
February 13th, 2023, as amended.
Art, second. I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good Lord. This room is killing me. All right. Let's welcome, oh no, committee reorganization first. Good. So Mary, last meeting,
Yep.
I had nominated Claudia to be the president. She said she didn't want to, so we named me president. But now that
Okay.
you're here, I would like you to help convince Claudia that maybe she should be president, because she's much more even-keeled than I am.
You guys have to decide who wants what. Like,
Do you,
I-
would you like it? 'Cause
I
you've
do
been
not.
long-standing?
I
No?
do not.
Okay.
I have enough on my plate.
Okay.
I don't need something else. If you're game and you folks want to reorganize again, we can redo the votes.
It's totally up to the group. What I was saying at the last meeting was that they said I was the longest standing, and that was the reason. And I said, that's not actually true.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'd only been to like 2 meetings.
That's
for my
okay.
own fault, so.
Yeah, but you were on it before.
Yes, years ago.
So that all counts, my friend.
Yeah.
That all counts. It's whatever the pleasure is of the three of you. Do you want to change? Do you want to stay as president?
I'm fine with
to you
it,
guys.
but, you know,
Yeah. We have a reorg, I think Mary
We
was
have-
saying in June.
We have to do it in July
All right,
anyway, in the new
so-
fiscal year.
we'll stick with
We have no
it.
choice. It's by charter.
Right. So we'll stick with this for now. Hopefully we'll have a new member by then to fill us out, and then we can reorg in July. Alrighty. Now we have introduction and welcome to Mary Anderson, our select person liaison. Do you want to come talk to us?
The other Mary in the room.
Yes, it's
Yes.
always good
Nice
to
to
have
see
two
you.
Marys, right?
That's right.
I am thrilled to finally be at a housing committee meeting. It has been a long struggle to get this far, but I'm pretty excited about the four of you, and if we can find a fifth, because the four of you I know want to do things, and that's what it's all about. I don't know if you want me to comment any further on where I think we're supposed to be headed, or save that for later discussion.
Well, why don't we introduce Joe, and then he can introduce himself to, we actually have people watching. And then maybe between us, we can have an open dialogue about what you expect from the committee, what Joe expects from the committee, what Brianna would like us to do to make her life easier and all that. So Joe, why don't you join us?
hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thanks for the invitation, and thanks for letting me do it from my kitchen. It helps with childcare, so I appreciate that. I too echo the sentiments of Select Board Member Anderson, and seeing you folks present and having meetings. And I am here this evening, it's my understanding, in my role as Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And so I send the greetings of the other trustees, and I heard you make mention of our housing advocate as well. I know Brianna is reaching out to all the groups related to housing. I believe she's made contact with you folks, is that correct?
Yes, and we had a wonderful talk at our last meeting with her and Paul. And just one of the things, the main topic that came up between us and them is they weren't sure, since you're their boss, they wanted to talk with you first and go over with you what they thought their roles should be vis-a-vis this committee.
So I can pick up on that. I see our Director of Planning and Community Development is also on. And Paul took the initiative about 2 weeks ago to reach out to me and Brianna. So we had I think a good, robust conversation last Friday. And my directive for the team, well, for anybody really, is to be out there supporting any groups, committees that we have that are dedicated to housing in Harwich. And I'm keen to emphasize housing, however we define that, because we have a group in the Board of Trustees of the Housing Trust Fund that are limited to affordable housing as it's defined, but everybody else can partner on any other element of housing, including something equally important as affordable, which is workforce. And so I know that Paul brings a wealth of experience in his background in planning that can help come to bear on that. And I think Paul and Brianna have already hit it off well. And I think with our new housing advocate and being able to rely upon our seasoned, because that's how Paul and I have decided to refer to ourselves, we are seasoned in our roles. And I think it's going to be a great fit. So one of the things I would say is we're mindful that these folks have daytime jobs. So anytime there's a request for evenings, I want to make sure that those folks are able to balance their family and relaxation obligations outside of work time. But certainly know that through administration, Board of Selectmen, that will make any staff resources you think are helpful available for anyone working on issues of housing.
Terrific. I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the things that we had talked about, was the capital A affordable, and that's a good portion of our charge. But I think the trust has that part down, and that the rest of us should be trying to focus on, the missing middle in the workforce, along with bringing in the trust. Mary?
So that has been the one thing that we have struggled with since I've been on this committee, is the charge from the Board of Selectmen. We're appointed by the Board of Selectmen and serve at their pleasure as an advisory board. So I think one of the things that we probably need to clarify and update is what our charge is. We have tried to do that since probably 2017 when I was first on this committee, and we haven't always been successful in that. And I think that to both Elizabeth and Joe's point, where the trust is really focusing on capital A affordable, do you want us to focus on the missing middle? Do you want us to focus on workforce? Do you want us to just be an education piece to assist the trust and the planning department and the building department and others in the role of housing in general? So I guess that's kind of the missing piece for me at this point, because that's where we've had a challenge. We haven't had anything to do until the trust came around. Now the trust has got items that they're working on, so it's where do you want us to fit in and help?
Madam Chair, may
Oh, sorry.
May I call on Brianna to hear her answer first, please,
I
Joe?
didn't know Brianna was with us. Excellent.
Yeah,
Yes.
Brianna, go ahead.
I called and I'm not.
Oh, there she
I'm
is.
sitting in the parking lot at my son's basketball practice. At work. So, basically just touching on, and of course, this isn't my decision to make, but just, I know that with the creation of my position, I'm going to be focusing on more of the mixing mill as well as affordable. And I think, we could possibly work together for the creation or the amendments to the current charge that the committee has. But I know that in the future, and currently I'll be looking to you to help me with community engagement support and varying events like that, if we're all in agreement that that would be a good place for us to work together.
Great. Joe, thoughts?
Thank you. Yes, what I was going to say in response to Mayor Kozlowski, and then taking the time to read the charge. My question first would be, Mary, you made reference, I know that the Housing Committee precedes the trust fund trustees, correct?
Correct.
And so there's obviously overlap in that regard, and I know you've got Mary Anderson in the audience, and she could speak as well as I could to the ongoing discussions we've had at the Board of Selectmen and trust fund level about the charge, about the actual trust document and what that dictates for the trust fund trustees. I would argue, and I would offer that there is a quicker method for your charge to be updated, as you've said, Mary, where it goes through the Board of Selectmen. So perhaps, and I would rely upon Mary Anderson's input, there could be a discussion in the very near future at the board level, because what I've been trying to indicate is whatever we're talking about, it's several different forms related to available housing. And so where the trust fund documents are somewhat onerous to amend in the short term, we could probably rely upon a faster process for you folks having a charge that's broader than what's listed on the website. Because in reading both of them, it looks to be entirely duplicative, where it doesn't have you folks looking at the various forms of housing. So I would offer that first as a response and perhaps for some discussion.
Mary, did you?
I certainly agree with that. The trust document, it'll take us, I think it's 2 rounds of annual meetings to get anywhere. Whereas if you guys came up with a proposed new, mission,
Right.
it could be approved in 2 weeks at the Board of Selectmen meeting. And I'd just like to add on to, I agree with what you've all talked about is the missing middle, the workforce housing or whatever you want to call it. But the other piece that, and I had this discussion with Brianna when she first came on, and I think we talked about it at one of the meetings that the trust and the committee, well, you weren't officially there because there were only 2 of you.
Right, it was
But
Joe
one of
and
the
I.
things that desperately needs to be done, it's expired, is the housing production plan. And I know everybody looks at it and kind of freaks, but to me, it's a term paper. I think if you guys took this, divided up the sections, it's expired, and I don't know, Mary can maybe help me, or Joe, something goes on with the state once we don't have this. I think we're less able to fight housing that we don't want, I don't know. But I think it's important that we get kind of an onerous task, but that looks like something solid that you guys could sink your teeth in. The other thing I suggested to Brianna is, she's a department of 1, which, as you know, can be a challenge. And I said to her, you've got a committee that is dying to have something to do. So I suggested that she look in what she's trying to accomplish and delegate some things out to you. She could probably coordinate it with Liz, who's the chair, and so those are my couple of thoughts.
Art?
Yeah, I hate to keep plowing the same fields, but Mary was dead going back a little bit of history lesson, the charter was a stumbling block because it does say we take our charge, our mission, our marching orders from the Board of Selectmen. And if the Board of Selectmen don't come down off the high horse and come to the committee or call us into to them and say, okay, we want you to do yada, 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 just get done. So that being said, we tried in the past, a couple sessions, to rewrite the charter. And quite frankly, we weren't successful. So my take now with the housing advocate's position filled, and that was a position I, way back when, said we weren't ever going to get anywhere until we had someone in town that had housing in their job description. Now we have someone that has that title, has that in their job description. I think that's where it should flow. Mr. Powers, through you, to Brianna, and to the two committees out there. Either it's the trust or the housing committee. That's where our marching orders should come from. And in this way here, everything housing comes across one person's desk. I firmly believe that the position of that housing advocate should be the central point for all housing discussion. And then who actually breaks it down and does the research and see if it's a viable or whatever, so on and forth. That is the housing coordinator and passes it out to the two committees. And that way, we're looking to have our own lane. What happened is, and I think, Joe, you saw this before. When the housing trust came along, they sucked the air out of the room. That's history. We're trying to establish our own lane now. They have a lane, we have a lane, and the two lanes are kind of parallel, but at times they're going to come together and join forces and do a like program together. But on day to day, they're going to have their own lane, but they should, and each should know what their own lane is. And I think that way there you'll get more production out of both committees and more cooperation.
Great. Paul, you had raised your hand. I think you had talked about the housing production plan at the last meeting. And it seemed like that was something you were going to be looking at as part of the RPP, I mean, not RPP, Harwich plan.
Local initiative.
Talk to us.
Local comprehensive plan.
Local comprehensive.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So today, our request for proposals by the consultant to help us update the local comprehensive plan went live. There's the required legal ad in the Cape Cod Chronicle. It's on the Central Register of the state, and I posted it on the Massachusetts Planners Listserv, which has over 350 members of planners, land use attorneys, others interested in planning across the state. So we've hit a milestone today. We're out to bid, and I think we are gonna, with a deadline, I think of April 13th, to get proposals. And what I wanted to explain was we tried to take a creative approach and bake into the update of the comprehensive plan the requirement for the consultants to not just do a chapter on housing, but to do a chapter on housing that will serve as a standalone housing production plan that can be certified by the State Department of Housing and Community Development. We don't know if that's going to work, and we're going to find out when we get proposals and when we have our first information session. We're trying to do the same thing with the expired open space and recreation plan. To check off the boxes of both of those plans to be state certified plans, it definitely requires more time, it'll cost more, and it'll take more effort for the consultants to do that. We may need to try to find some additional funds to supplement the $200,000 that was appropriated last year for updating the comprehensive plan. but we thought it was worth taking a shot to see if we could kill multiple birds with one stone. So we'll know better in about a month whether or not we're going to be able to do that. And I think this would be a great opportunity for the Housing Committee to team up with the Comprehensive Planning Committee to work on updating that both section of the master plan and for the update of the housing production plan.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Mary, did you?
If I might continue for one more minute to kind of talk about goals and the things that we were talking about earlier. I'm a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, and that's a subset of the American Planning Association. And when it comes to housing, myself and my colleagues are charged to try to promote a broad range of housing options for a broad range of incomes. And you know, simply put, multiple options of different types of housing for a wide range of people of incomes. And that is something that's simple and short, and I think kind of checks the boxes off for what some of our goals should be going forward.
Excellent. Mary, Eva.
Yeah, I just had a follow-up question, Paul. It's Mary Anderson. I wanted to make sure that I understood you correctly. It would not then be duplicative for this group to start on the housing production plan, at least get some of the legwork out of the way.
I don't think it would be duplicative, and I think that it would make sense for the Housing Committee to meet with the local comprehensive planning committee and start a discussion about what ideas we have to get public input and goals that we want to set for that chapter of the comprehensive plan and for the housing production plan.
Great, thank you.
Mary Maslowski, do you have anything you'd like to add?
So my only question is, I'm sure Brianna has quite a lot on her plate. I'm wondering if somebody could, or if we could start as a baseline and see what some of those goals were in the last one and which ones we have checked off the list, whether it's partial or full, as a starting point. I know we had hotel motel conversions as one of them. I know we had, we were looking at the time for it to be 22 units a year, and I don't know where some of us would find that information to be able to pull that out and see where our numbers stand now versus where they were in 2016 when that was approved.
Brianna? Oh, Joe?
Well, I'd like to start because I'm hoping that Brianna is engrossed in Carter's basketball game. But I can tell you that when Brianna and I meet on a weekly basis and have since her introduction into the town. And one of the things that I've tasked her with is reaching out to any of the chairs of any of the public bodies that touch upon housing in general. So Elizabeth, that would be you on housing. It would be Dave Nixon on CPC. Elizabeth, that might also be you for Housing Authority. Am I getting that right?
Yep.
So speaking of two birds, certainly Elaine Sheldon, Real Estate and Open Space. And I've also suggested Finance Committee. Now, the benefit of having Brianna do this is she's not a member of a public body. We're looking at one representative, if not the chair from each of those groups, so that she can start having these conversations in greater detail and in depth. And again, Paul's already offered to be an ongoing resource, so we would want his input as well as if he wants a member of the planning board to be part of that, or if that works. Again, we're trying to immediately bring all the major stakeholders to the room, and Art, as you were saying, have that coordinated through the housing advocate, because that is the person directly responsible for these topics.
Okay. Claudia?
I just had a quick question. You guys may know this, but I know that, Paul, last time we talked about Jen Goldstein as doing something around the housing plan, so I just, I don't know who can answer that, but I'm just confused. I don't know who's doing what, so sorry about that. If someone could help me.
I can actually speak to that. if I could, Paul.
Okay.
Jen Goldson is presently under contract through her firm, J.M. Goldson, with the Housing Trust Fund. So we were going to have a meeting this past week with the newest member, Larry Valentine, representing the Board of Selectmen. So we had some members who couldn't make it, we had a staff member who couldn't make it. So we're gonna have a conversation at our next meeting on next steps regarding J.M. Goldson. Her firm was first brought under contract in the town, I think, back in 2019, when the trust fund was merely a year old. And her area of expertise in that is helping them identify an action plan as to how the trust may want to operate as it grows. So part of the conversation we're going to have at the next trust meeting is, do we still want to move forward with that, or would we be able to rely upon our housing advocate, who's done a great job of reaching out to her colleagues on Cape Cod to get that sense? Now, whatever decision the trustees make, Ms. Goldson's firm is a valuable resource generally. And when I had a conversation with Jen back in January, she was keenly interested in the local comprehensive plan and certainly subsets of it, like the housing production plan. So if we don't move forward, or if there's different action on the action plan for the trust itself, I still think that the town will look to rely upon the resources of Jan Goldson Associates.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, I remember the last time we did the housing production plan, we definitely worked with a consultant, so it seems like that would be great. Okay, thank you.
Brianna, do you have anything?
No, just thank you. So, yeah, I did step in for a second with my 5-year-old, was playing with big kids, but I'm like back out. But it's actually been a great source of knowledge for me to learn what different towns are doing, and I'm happy to share that information with you guys. I'm working on the report, and once it's done, I'll send it out, and any follow-up questions, I would be happy to reach back out to for the other towns for further communication.
Okay, and then should you, as you're getting more settled and figuring out what your plan is, if you want to give me a call sometime, we can sit and figure out how best we can serve you and help you.
Yes, definitely. I think that's something that we'll be able to work on. I also think that's a conversation we can have when we kind of do, I don't know what we're going to call it, like a team meeting, I guess, with all the different chairs of the committees that Joe was speaking about. But that's great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Sorry, Claudia.
Do we feel like, I'm not sure if you're moving on, but just in terms of, again, just a question, how we move forward with the update on the charter or the charge? Is that, I know we've heard a couple things. One is, Mary, you suggested coming up with a draft and presenting that, and I know we've had discussion around having it be the reverse. Obviously, it looks like the charge is still the same as when I was on it before, so before the trust, so obviously it makes sense to update it. But I'm not clear on what the next steps are with that.
Well, Joe, would you like us to write a draft, send it to you, and send it to you, Brianna and Paul, maybe? And then after your comments, maybe we can put together a draft to give to the select board?
Sure, and again, you have the benefit of your liaison from the board in your meeting, so I would want to defer to Mary Anderson in that regard. Because I agree with what Mary said earlier. I think it's as simple as you folks come up with a draft, but Elizabeth, if you want me and the team to look at it, we certainly would do that. I think we would do that anyway once it becomes part of the selectmen's packet. So that we can give good guidance to the board on that. But I do want to ask one question. I did hear reference to the charter.
Or charge, I guess I call it a charter.
Art talks about the charter, but
Well, the word charter and mission statement is kind of, they bump into each other, they cross
no,
over.
the charge is.
Yeah, I meant the charge.
Okay, very good.
And,
Thank you. Yeah, sorry.
that we can rewrite.
We're debating the word "is" here.
Yeah. So,
We're still on the same page. I just wanted to be
Right,
clear about that. I know there's reference in the charter, obviously, to the housing authority, which you would imagine. And of course, we know we have, I believe it's chapter 140 of our bylaws, which outlines the trustees of the trust fund. So again, I think the path of least resistance, and the good news is you folks have it as a specific topic on your agenda tonight.
right,
You know, as Mary had said, we could probably have something come before the board as early as March 27th, but if everyone's on board,
great,
and that would go into effect immediately.
terrific. Thank you. Yes, Mary.
And I'm happy to work with you if you want me to join you for a meeting to hammer it out, or you want to hammer it out and send it. I'm happy to help.
Great. If,
Can I ask a question? And maybe we're gonna cover it. I think what I've noticed is, Joe, we talked a little bit about this last time, and I'm just kind of pulling from the way it used to be, obviously before the trust. So now there's a lot of people helping out in different areas. So I think I know when we were working as a committee, we worked on education, public relations, advertising, identifying properties, reviewing proposals, like, so it was pretty widespread. And so I've noticed that, maybe the trust will have an open forum to create some engagement and maybe do some education. So I think from some of that, I don't know if there's any input on, and again, I apologize, I feel like I'm really learning, but like, would the trust be, capital A affordable housing and all things to do with that in an ideal world, like the education, the public forums, the PR, the advocacy, or are they really going to be just purchasing and managing and project managing, like actually creating, a capital A affordable housing, and then we would do, a partnership with advocacy and PR and advertising and be identifying all other types of housing.
good, good.
So I didn't know if you had a thought on that, just to steer us into like how to, yeah.
It's a great question because it's still an unanswered question, I think from the standpoint of the Board of Trustees. And you're probably picking up that I've been saying Board of Trustees, and that's purposeful. As I've been on the scene, so to speak, with the trust fund and in the role of chair as envisioned in the documents, the first thing I take away from reading the trust documents is I truly believe that our Harwich Affordable Housing Trust Fund is exactly that. It's a trust fund, and so the members of the public body are trustees. And so first and foremost, we have a true fiduciary role as any board of trustees would have for a trust fund. And so for us, and this is a discussion that we're going to flesh out at the trustee level, for me, my thought is, and just speaking as one member, is we, the trustees, can make the greatest impact by amassing capital. And that is not the same capital that I work on day in and day out. It's like you would hear from, a college or a university or other endowment, that we should be amassing funds, investing those funds and drawing down on the interest for anyone that can make a proposal that impacts on capital A, capital H affordable housing. And so for me, I'm trying to narrowcast that in the short term, because unlike an advisory committee such as the Housing Committee, and that's meant to really strengthen what you folks do, and that is advise the town through the Board of Selectmen on anything to do with housing. As we see the trust fund, hopefully say in 5 years' time, what we see is something that is akin to what we have for the Caleb Chase Trust Fund. And that's a group that relies upon an endowment, and it makes disbursements of their interest for the benefit of people who need help. So for me, I've been using the analogy lately, I think it's an analogy, that the trust fund to the Board of Trustees should probably be the Caleb Chase of affordable housing. And that is, we do everything we can to leverage the money that we get from different sources, most notably Community Preservation Committee, so that, and that's what I talk about, everybody else can be much more nimble, much more broad in their cast where we're narrow casted. But again, it's a great question because we haven't really delved into that question with the current makeup of the trustees, but those are the kind of questions we're going to hammer out sooner rather than later. In the meantime, that's why I think, I'm hoping that Brianna would back me up, that I'm trying to give clarity of instruction, and that is for her to reach out to every other group that has anything to do with housing so that that process can begin immediately. So I hope that answers it, but again, it's a very deep philosophical question that the trustees will need to answer sooner rather than later, so we can get everybody moving in the same direction.
Terrific. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, thanks.
If people don't mind going out of order, if we take item 7 now, Paul can go over the ADU amendment, and then he can be free to leave us instead of hanging around the whole time.
Thank you. Before I discuss the status of the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, I just wanted to circle back to something that Mary Maslowski said, asking about the existing housing production plan and whether or not there's been a review conducted to see which recommendations were implemented. And that's going to be the first thing that any consultants we hire to update the plan. They're going to say, okay, what did you do? What didn't you do? And if you didn't do it, was there a reason why you didn't follow through with that recommendation? I would put that on the table in front of the Housing Committee as a task that I think you guys should discuss. It's not something that I can do very easily, or Brianna could do very easily, because we weren't here. But there are things that you may have done within the last few years that it would take us research, and your institutional knowledge would know what things were done, and if there was a particular reason why you ran to a roadblock and didn't do it. Let's take a look at those recommendations at the back of the plan and see if it makes sense to go forward with any of those. And that could be a starting point.
Thank you.
With regard to the draft article for amending the accessory apartment bylaw, on Tuesday night, we had our second public hearing at the planning board meeting, and there was a lot of discussion about the article. We seem to have kind of hit a point where there's two camps, and one group of planning board members seem to be interested in putting this on hold and wanting to further study it before we go forward. And other board members said, well, let's go forward with it now, and now's the time, and we can always go back and change it later. And Mary was one of the strong advocates for let's move forward and let's not put this on hold. Let's just try to go forward now, and we can adjust it later if we need to. So the planning board ended up continuing the public hearing for just that particular one article to our next meeting on March 28th, and that'll be our deadline. The planning board's going to discuss it some more. There were a lot of people that attended the hearing that spoke in favor of moving forward with the article. Two selectmen were there and were strongly advocating for going forward. And there was just a couple of people that were raising some concerns, and they were largely environmental concerns about increased wastewater generated from any new accessory apartments that could be created. And while I understand those concerns and I share those concerns, I don't think that this bylaw, if it were to pass, will create enough units to really cause any legitimate concern for environmental impacts to the aquifer. We were trying to, Brianna and I discussed this today. We had about an hour-long meeting. We talked a few different things to work on together. And we looked at each other and said, if this bylaw were to create 30 units in a year, that would be about what we would think could come out of it. We don't anticipate a watershed of new applications for accessory apartments. And we talked about some of the reasons why that we don't anticipate a flood of them. One is the cost. We understand, and I think I attended the first planning board meeting, and he gave us his back of the envelope analysis of taking an existing barn that he has, and he said, what if I wanted to convert that shell of a building into an accessory apartment? And he said, based on his analysis, it'd probably be $100,000. And we all know that at our homes, the most expensive rooms to renovate are kitchens and bathrooms. And just to build a kitchen and a bathroom, even small, in a small apartment unit, that's going to be half of that at $100,000 ballpark estimate. So we don't see that there's going to be a line at the door of people that are going to be ready, willing, and able to create accessory apartments. And so for that reason, while we share the concern about the potential impacts to groundwater, we really don't think that that's a valid concern at this point in time. So it would be helpful for those that want to support this article to send an email or a letter to the planning board for the hearing on the 28th, to attend the hearing and advocate for it. And if the housing committee chose to, at some point in time before the May town meeting, take a vote to support that, when I'm presenting the article to the voters at the annual town meeting, it's always helpful for me to say at the end of my presentation that the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, the Housing Committee, the Appeals Board, all support this article. And that way the voters know that their town government has reviewed it, supports it, is behind it, and they're recommending that the voters vote to adopt it. I put copies of it on the table before I left this afternoon, and that's in front of you. So you do have the latest draft. I don't anticipate any more changes, and that's pretty much the status of it. We need to try to push the ball over the goal line at this point.
May I ask you a question? So this is what you think the final wording is going to be? Because the
Yes.
complaints that the people I know that are against it are, as you said, very worried about the environment and the water. And I don't see, it says, section I says it must meet all Board of Health requirements. But it does, but then it goes on to say, I think section M is what is scaring people, because it says you may get a special permit, that do not comply with the applicable zoning district. And I think that makes people think that people are gonna be able to put up accessory dwelling units in the middle of, the what is it, Six Ponds DCPC or, so is there a way you could make that, more specific? Oh, Mary, you're on the.
So if you watched any part of our multi-hour public hearings,
I watched
if you watch Tuesday night, the Six Ponds District isn't really even in play in this one. And people are under the misconception that this means that somebody is going to build another 1,000 square feet and add 2 bedrooms. That's not necessarily what's going to happen. Some people may have the land available to do that and still fall within zoning. But for some people, this is going to be shifting a bedroom from a 3-bedroom house into a 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom. For some people, it is going to be shifting a bedroom into
the garage.
a garage to make it a separate unit. So although there may be some ADUs that will be adding a bedroom, but within Board of Health regulations, which means the property is going to be sewered, or the property is going to have a 4-bedroom septic if they're adding a bedroom into a 3-bedroom house. It also means if it doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to flood the town with density. As Richard Waystack was probably the most on point for everyone when he pointed out that, you know, what you're talking about adding here is negligible compared to what people are doing in Ocean Grove in the campground, and building on the same footprint and putting a, you know, 4,500 square foot house on a 3,600 square foot parcel of land. So, you know, the Six Ponds isn't even being touched with this, but I think it's a misconception.
Right, and that's why I'm asking if you couldn't just strengthen the language and, you know, either where you talk about zoning board of appeals, making it clear that does not apply to environmental restrictions, or the paragraph that talks about the board of health saying, you know, that they won't be able to do something, because those are the complaints I hear. But so if I just feel like if there was a little more clear language in one of those items, like Mary said, then everyone would understand, oh, I see, they're not gonna go build a second home in 6 months. Because I think that's what everybody's worried about.
I understand and I appreciate that feedback, and that will direct me on what I need to focus on when I talk to people about this. As Mary indicated, this will not change any of the zoning regulations in the Six Pond District. It currently requires a 60,000 square foot lot to have a house and an accessory apartment, and that's not going to change. The second part of I that talks about complying with the Board of Health regulations goes on to say, and look forward to the future, to say that if the sewer is in proximity to this property, they have to connect the principal dwelling and the accessory apartment to the sewer. And so at some point, as more properties have access to sewer, we'll be taking that flow and that nitrogen input off the table. So there will, in effect, be some kind of balancing as we go forward. Regarding Section M with the Zoning Board of Appeals, that was added specifically at the request of the Board of Appeals. They told me that most of the time when people come before them for an accessory apartment, they have pre-existing non-conforming properties, and the Board of Appeals cannot grant approval in that scenario. So they said, if you really want this to work, because the town does have so many pre-existing non-conforming properties, we need to kind of build in some more flexibility for the Board of Appeals to allow that. And I think we need to have a little faith in the judgment of the Board of Appeals in handling these cases. But I hear your comments, Madam Chairman, and I'll think about anything that I might be able to add in to the bylaw. But if I don't make a change to the bylaw, at least now I know what to focus on when I'm talking to people, trying to educate them about it.
Right, because it's totally, every complaint I've heard is environmental, is being able to build next to, too close to the watershed, or this or that. So if there's a way just to put environment in there somehow. Claudia.
Yeah, Paul, I'm gonna send you what they sent me. I know I sent you part of it from the CDP in Eastham, because they have that. Victoria is the one who's helping try and help people in different towns see how feasible it is to get through. But the whole thing is really great in terms of, you know, what is involved. I'm just gonna, if you guys don't mind, I'm just gonna read it's very lengthy. I'm just gonna read the part about the special permit, just so that we understand what's entailed. I think to your point, like, it's not an easy thing to do, and there's restrictions around it. So, no.
Go ahead. I mean, I will say why it's ironic, and after you're done.
Yeah. She says, I also want to make it clear that the upfront cost will apply. So she's basically telling me I need a special permit if I were to do it, and how much it costs. And obviously, what's good about it, going back to the cost, I know that Art did $100,000 back of the envelope. They actually do really precise. So we were looking at a 10 by 12 garage, trying to do that, and they were quoting somewhere around 150 to 200,000 for us.
Okay,
So-
I'm cheap.
Not that, I just think that, to your point, Paul, it's nice to have actual like data, right, on the cost of something that, an existing structure, but basically they're telling, and I can forward this to you, but it's, I don't want to waste people's time, but for me, it was helpful, because they were talking about there's going to be significant costs for special permits. The completed application must include drawn and scaled floor plans of both the existing structure and the proposed ADU, building elevation drawings showing all existing and proposed entrances to the main dwelling, and the ADU, and a new septic plan, if applicable. Precise cost of this can't be pinpointed, but roughly 10 to 15,000 is not out of the question, and then goes on to explain how much else everything's going to cost. So, anyways, I just wanted to throw it out there in terms of just.
So, Paul, I just want to add couple things here. I applaud you for what you're doing, first of all. You're on the right track. And ADUs, it is not going to solve the housing problem on Cape Cod or in the free world, period. It's going to be another tool in the toolbox. We're trying to build the toolbox, and by the time we're done, none of us in this room will be here when we finally get the toolbox all built out. So, and another whatever you want to call it, study. We've been studied to death. I've been involved, I've been in the trenches for about 7, 8, 9 years now. And I've gone through one study after another. In fact, I have a couple shelves in my closet at home of studies that go back to 2000. And I read one the other day, and it's saying the same words. 24 years later, it's saying the same things we're saying today. And it was a study then. So we want another study to say the same things. I wouldn't give in to another study, in other words. This is just another tool in our toolbox. And I think what's going to tamp this whole thing down is the economics behind it. Everyone is now the new buzzword is the environment. Okay, if it's not the children, it's the environment. So now today we're using the environment. That's our hammer. We want to beat up everyone. Oh, we're impacting the environment. Okay, so tomorrow it'll be another buzzword. So, but we can't give into it. Yeah, I don't know how many people out there are actually storming the office today because we're talking about ADUs. I don't think anybody is. I don't think anybody's sitting around their kitchen table
Oh, they
upset
are.
about. If they are, then
Not talking to
fine. We'll have them come in here, sit down, talk it through, and maybe we can change your mind, or maybe we can't. I don't know. But anyways, keep doing what you're doing, Paul. You're doing a great job.
Mary Misleski.
Thank you.
So just a little history for those that might be listening. We've had an ADU bylaw in the town of Harwich for a very long time. It was by special permit in all districts. It was a special permit that was granted by the planning board. Back when the housing advocates and the Cape Cod Commission came across and requested that all of the towns on Cape Cod, we move away from special permits towards building an ADU as a matter of right. So when we made that change in Harwich, we tailored it to the Harwich bylaw. This is now what part of the problem is with the lot size limits, which is the point of this, to take those lot size limits away. However, Paul brings up a good point. There will be an opportunity for some under special permit if they can meet all of the lengthy criteria that's required for the zoning board of appeals, which is a pretty high hurdle to have to come across for a special permit through the board of appeals, just like it would be if you were doing a variance. So I think that's just a little background for people that don't understand where it all started. It started as a special permit under the zoning board, under the zoning bylaw through the planning board. We tried to open it up and make it easier for people so that they didn't have to go through that permitting process, have the ability to do it as a matter of right. And unfortunately, advocates and builders and engineers are telling the Board of Selectmen and others that didn't loosen the reins as much as we thought it would because of some of those lot size limits. So that's the point of trying to make the change this year, which is why I am in favor of it, because even if it helps 3 people or 2 people be able to stay in their house in the next calendar year before we can fix it further and make a perfectly better version, it's 2 people that get to stay on Cape, it's 2 people that get to stay in their house, it's 2 people that don't have to sell their house and move. So that's my 2 cents. I've said it a few times this week, and I've
Mary
ruined the face.
Anderson.
I would just also like to thank you, Paul. I think this is an outstanding proposal, and I think you're going to find that 28th meeting is going to be posted as a selectmen's meeting too. So you will have quite a crowd of supporters. And my bet, you threw out the number 30. If we get 10 of these a year, I think it'll be a miracle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're too expensive.
but fabulous. Thank
But
you.
fabulous.
Thank you, Paul. Unless anybody sees any reason, I think we can let Paul and Brianna and Joe go, should they choose. And with our deep thanks for appearing with us,
Thank you very much.
Joe
Thank you so
and
much,
Paul
Joe.
and
Thanks,
Brianna.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks,
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, guys. All right, back to schedule. Mary, you may want to stay if we're going to
Sure.
go over the committee charge, because we can discuss what we want to do. I mean, I think really, we can just write a paragraph or 2.
I was going to suggest we all take a stab at it and
Yes.
Yeah,
And then just
So,
kind of hammer it out at
circul-
the next meeting.
hammer it out at the
Right.
next meeting. Everybody put together what we think it should say. We can compare and contrast and blend it together at the next meeting.
yeah.
Love it.
Does
that make sense?
I don't think it's anything complicated.
I don't think it's heavy lifting.
Some of it's not bad.
No, some of it's not.
No.
But it was a matter, Mary, that once the trust was started, it was like we didn't have anything to do. There was nothing to work on. There were no, other than Habitat for Humanity, which was well established and
Right.
in the middle of their project at that point. There hasn't been anything to really focus on. So,
Yeah.
it
Right.
probably should go back to more of the education and more of the review and everything else with real estate and open space and those things. But
And I think it should also, the Affordable Trust is very limited. They have to do capital A, affordable.
can't do anything else.
They can only go up
They
to
can't- they're not even supposed to
60%
talk about it.
AMI or 80, 60 or 80.
It's
And that's
debatable
it.
whether it's 60 or 80.
And that's it.
That's-
80?
80.
Okay,
Brendan?
thanks.
80.
So
Thanks,
that's it.
Brendan.
So we need, most of the need, honestly, in Harwich right now is 80 to 160. Because we have older people that are overhoused, that would love to get rid of their big houses that they raise their families in, and not have to take care of the yard and the furnace and all that, but they don't want to leave. There's nowhere for them to go. So, we do need a diversity in housing like that. So, we do need condos, we need 2 to 3 family homes, single family, ADUs and single family homes aren't gonna do it either. They're everything's a tool. And so I think that as the committee, we have more leeway to be able to sort of serve as a clearinghouse for the other housing activities. Does that make sense? Or something to think about like that, we could be the ones that report on Habitat and the Housing Authority and other things and try to support and, communicate to the people about the sort of missing middle
Well,
housing.
we also still have a role with the trust in that we're supposed to have a joint meeting once a year under the town bylaw to draft an annual plan to present to the Board of Selectmen. So that role is still there too, so.
Right. And-
I just think if we all take a stab at what we think it should sound like and what it should look like, I think we can then hammer out a good blend at our next meeting without
Okay,
Brendan,
beating a dead horse.
I see you've joined us.
Hi, Brendan.
Hey, how you doing, everyone? I just wanted to add real quickly, if you have a chance, our meeting coming up on Monday for the Affordable Housing Trust, Brianna put together information that might be pretty helpful when you start talking about percentages and AMI. So you'll be able to get a good sense of the qualifier for 30, 50, 60, 80%. We're also going to talk about rents as well. Like, what is the number at 80% AMI? So you'll get a good sense of what rents and who could potentially qualify and who we're really trying to talk to get housing. So I think if you have time to sit in on that or watch it, it's going to be pretty helpful.
So that was this week's move to next Monday?
This coming Monday?
Yeah, Monday the 20th, and it's at 12:30.
Bummer. I can't be there, so I hope maybe.
I'll see you there.
Otherwise, you're good.
but if you look at the agenda from last week, it has all those charts Brendan's talking about.
Right.
So you could get a good look at it even if you couldn't come.
Right. And then Brendan, you and I had talked last week about, maybe not being an official member, but if having someone from the trust like yourself who'd be willing to come to committee meetings, housing committee meetings as we go to your meetings, and that would just open up, nothing official, but just open up the lines of communication between us, because I think we certainly need to be talking more than just once a year.
Oh.
Correct, yeah, I think I agreed with that last time, and I haven't had a chance to speak to Joe about how I could participate. More than welcome, I'm more than happy to come to the meetings when I can or watch them live. But my point was, if you were short on members and trying to get over the hump or just trying to get some tasks done, I was more than willing to help out for a short period of time. But yeah, whatever you guys need, and then obviously I want to speak to Joe about it as well.
Terrific. Okay, thank you. So I guess we'll all, Mary, the housing production plan,
Yes.
where is that? I've tried 7 times to find that.
Oh, to get this?
Yeah.
Should be on the webpage.
I got a
someone
copy
have
of
to
it
show me
from,
how.
I think Danielle or Ellen in the office printed this for me, like,
I think all you have to do is search housing production plan.
you think you can find it
It
online?
should show up.
I hate to say this, but everyone on the committee should have a copy. I have a copy.
Do you? All right, I'll
I'm
try
usually using
again.
a copy, but I'm not running,
Yeah,
using my paper and ink.
Because I've tried a
It's
couple of
170
times, but I will
pages
try again. Because, that's something else while we're doing the charge. Take a
Okay,
peek
so
at that.
if you want a
And,
little- If you want a little history lesson on the housing production plan, when that came out,
I was on
Did
the
you know what
planning board.
happened?
I was on the planning board at the time when we approved
yeah,
it.
well, town planner took it over.
Yes. Because,
Elizabeth, it's on our website.
Took it
It's on
over.
the Affordable
Yes.
Trust website.
oh, it is?
and in my own
Thank
personal
you.
opinion, that's where it belongs.
Okay, I
We should
think I
be-
was looking at
we
the-
should be
hang on a
commenting.
sec, Mary.
Yeah, but not drafting.
No.
Like, we did not do that.
Okay,
Like, when
thank
we
you.
were on the committee last, we did not draft a housing production plan.
Right.
We had a consultant do it, and
Right.
we weighed in
Right.
and
I'm
worked with
I'm
them.
talking about the final product.
Yes, and
After
it
science
belongs in the, it
Right.
belongs in the town planning
It
office.
should go to the planning office, shouldn't it?
Yes, it is a housing production
Where else
plan.
would it go?
It says it was prepared by the Harwich Housing Plan Work Group. Charlene Green, she was assistant town admin.
Right.
John Stewart, he was on the Housing Authority.
Right.
Linda Sabula, she was on planning. Julia Eldridge, she was on the Housing Committee. Cindy Mall, she was on CPC. And Karen Sunaborg, consultant.
Cindy Moe was also.
She was the
That
consultant.
consultant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's,
2 members from the housing committee.
yeah. Well, right now, we can take a peek at it and see what our thoughts are.
yeah.
Because that, as everybody said, I'm sure they want the trust to look at it too, so that we can, give some ideas, so the consultant doesn't come in blind.
That is
you
not a
know.
document that we should ever think that the 4 of us, or even with a fifth person would be drafting.
No,
It's
no, no, not
170
to.
pages long.
No,
so-
no, 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 no. It's
No,
not
but
to
that's what I'm
draft.
saying.
It's to
It is something that
update
should be,
in terms of.
it is still something that should be housed generally in the planning office, which is why I think it's a great idea that Paul tried to make it as a separate component and a separate standalone component on the local comprehensive plan. It's
Right.
where it belongs. It is a component of really should be a component, just like the
Right.
open space and
We're
recreation
not
plan.
saying it shouldn't. We're just saying that if we, as Paul suggested, if we can take a look at it through.
Oh,
you
no,
know,
absolutely.
our
I'm not
time to
saying,
look
I'm not
and
saying
say,
we're not.
Oh, yeah, like, for example, I bet it says in there, if that was created, 100 years ago, I bet it says, number one, create an affordable housing trust. Yeah. So
I
you
think
can at least say.
I think it does.
Like,
I
we
think
did
it does
that.
say that.
We did that.
It also
you
talks
know.
about hotel motel conversions.
Exactly.
It talks about
So-
how many units we needed to create in an annual
Yeah,
year, which
so
I don't think
that's what
we've
we
hit.
can-
So
Right.
So-
So that's just what, we can take a look at to see if we can be in any help of updating a couple of things so that when the consultants do take a crack at it.
I'm
they
not
might
saying
have
we
some
shouldn't look at
answers.
it. I'm saying that I think it was appropriate that the town planning office was heavily involved in it at the time.
Yeah, of course.
Because we're,
Brendan, did they ask you to take a look at this too? Just
I
to,
mean, it's something, it's what we originally looked at it when we first started.
Okay.
It's about 138 pages, it's pretty involved. I mean, most of the numbers are now dated, it's from 2016.
right,
So it definitely there has to be a reboot on it.
okay. All right, so we can all play with that and the committee charge. And we, discussed with, Brendan that we'll try to go, try to attend their meetings or at least watch their meetings, and hopefully he or others can
Well, I
come
go to
to
all
or
of them.
watch our meetings, and that way we'll, keep the, you
I go to all
go,
of them.
great. Because, we want to keep the lines of communication open, because one assigned meeting a year is not
No.
gonna cut it, and we should all be working together. Because if we are gonna if a big part of ours is education, we're gonna need to be educating the public about what the trust is doing. So I think that's good. I think we'll have let's try to have a nice cooperative
I
relationship.
think once we put our charge together
Yeah.
and what our mission is, it's going to,
Exactly.
the communication will flow from that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely.
So we've covered our agenda except the next meeting date. And we had decided last time that the third Thursday worked for people. Is that still true?
I
No.
frankly liked Mondays.
I
but
know, actually, so did I. I have a new meeting that's coming that's gonna be on Thursdays at 6, so it's not gonna work for me this late. I think we did this because Joe could only do this time and this day.
Right, and Mary. 'cause-
Brianna, I think she can do it, but it has to be after, she would do remotely after, and you're 5:30, so I think we could see, do you have a day
See,
or time that
Monday is
doesn't work?
select board.
Monday's the select board
Monday's select
meeting,
board.
so.
Right, but we used to meet at 5 o'clock on a Monday, so
Oh,
Can you
so if
meet
it's
at
at
5 o'clock on a
5
Monday?
o'clock, I can join you.
at
as
5:15 I can make it, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's not, that's.
Yeah, and I can't make it
really.
before
I mean,
6.
You gotta run out the door like someone's chasing you. And
I can get here for 5.
It's
If
up
I
to
need to
you.
on a
I
day.
feel like you have like the most meetings, so you tell us
I
what's good.
do, but honestly, a Monday works better for me than a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay.
That's just,
So what about Mondays at like 5:15?
I can't do that.
You can't do that.
No,
When can you
because
do
I have a
Mondays?
lot of, usually have assembly meetings till at least 6 on Mondays, the subcommittee meetings.
So Mary, roll back to Mary, what day is good?
it's really, I hate to say it, a Wednesday might be better than a Thursday.
Oh, Wednesday's good.
Again, I have assembly of delegates on Wednesday. That's
So you have
and
assembly on
that's
Monday
really
and
good.
Wednesday?
Yeah, that's pretty much, the assembly meets on the first and third Wednesday of every month. So we could always try the second Wednesday of the month.
Yep.
Knowing that, if we could do it at like 6.
Second Wednesday of
That's
every
fine.
month at 6 works.
So second Wednesday?
Mary, does that work?
Yeah.
Second Wednesday of the
Second
month at
Wednesday.
6 PM. If we're doing it at 6, we have to figure out the keys. So today I picked it up, but I had to leave work to do that, so.
Okay, I live up the street, so I
Okay.
can handle keys.
So I think it's just, I don't know how, today it happened
What time did we
because,
say again?
6 o'clock. So the next meeting will be April 12th at 6 PM.
And let me just ask, as liaison, I don't want to step on toes. If you want me to come, I will, but I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to take over or direct the committee, because that is not my charge.
I feel like that, we used to, what was her name, Sabella? Something, I can't remember. But we had I don't want to speak for everybody, for me, we had, our liaison was at all our meetings, and it was great, because it was insight. When we would talk through things, there would be information that you would have that would be from a meeting that,
Okay.
oh, well, we're leaning this way, but I don't know if you all feel.
And see, I would have leaned the other way and said, come when you feel that there's something we're talking about that you'd like input in versus
Yeah, that's totally.
versus
fine.
having you.
Yeah, I don't want it to be like you have to, but if
Yeah.
you want to,
Okay.
I would,
certainly not
I
stepping
mean,
on
I have no,
toes.
I mean, of course, a public meeting, we can't stop
Right,
anybody
right,
from
right.
coming. But certainly,
Happy to have you.
Happy to have you.
Okay.
Don't want to
Don't
force you.
Exactly.
Don't feel
Thank
you
you.
have to.
All right, then I'm gonna put it on my calendar and try to come to most. How's
Right,
that?
and if you see like our topics of discussion, or, you know, you go, well, they don't need me for that.
Or if there's something
Or
in,
there's something you're really pissed about that you want to speak up on.
or if there's something in particular that you want me here for,
Right.
send me a text or an email. Or
Yeah, so
Right.
Mary and I have been like emailing or just kind of checking in. Is it appropriate that I was gonna get that, like, what to do and what
Yeah.
not to do, but is
Yeah.
it appropriate when I send the agenda out, or I don't know if you want to take that over, it's totally great. But whatever, whenever we send that out, whoever sends it, we could CC you, and that way you kind of
Yeah,
know.
the,
That's
I
no
would say
problem.
the agenda should always be sent to, Mary, Joe, Brianna, and Paul.
And I'll get you my template for historic. I was trying to think of what a good one is. I'll give you my template for historic so you can make our agendas accordingly.
Okay, I looked on the past and just kind of,
Yeah.
this was just something that I was like, okay, it seemed to encompass everything, but,
Yeah, there are other things that we were supposed to put recording notices
okay,
and those kinds of things on
all
it.
right,
So
perfect,
I'll
thank
get you that.
Okay.
All right, so we did that. Now, is there any old business anyone
Well, I don't-
wants to bring
okay.
up? Yes, Art.
Can I ask one question before we move to, so as the chair, I would typically give this to you to do the, agenda? Is that how it works? Or am I doing that as secretary? I don't mind either way, I guess. I took
don't mind.
everything
I'm
on
happy
last
to do-
time.
It's at
If
the
you want me
pleasure of
to,
the chair, whatever the
yeah,
chair wants,
if you,
but-
but at
Lovely.
her pleasure. So do you want me to take over the agenda and you just do minutes?
It
Is that-
doesn't, it's, I'm honestly
Or I
just
can do minutes
asking.
and you do handle the
No, I'm
agenda
the
and stuff?
secretary, I'll do the minutes.
Okay. I'm just, you know.
That is in fact my
Try
job.
to make people's lives easier.
It just needs to get
Um,
emailed to agenda, the agenda email by noon on Thursday, according to the Board of Selectmen's policy, on the Thursday prior to the meeting.
Yeah,
As long as we're meeting on a Wednesday, that'll work. If
Yeah.
you were meeting on a Monday, it would have to go earlier.
yeah, if you want, Liz, I can send you, we also, because we do a call-in, I email before I submit, I send the agenda out to all of you, and then you say, yeah, that looks good, and then I notify the clerk, and she sends me the call-in info, and then I just add it to the top of the agenda, so I can just write it out and send it to you, what I do, if you want.
Sure.
Okay.
That's great. So I'll take care of that for now.
Okay.
And then, who do I talk to about the key?
Oh,
Administration office.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
You have to get it from one of the assistants. And
Okay,
They have
because-
you sign it out and then you can.
And then I drop it in the box
Drop it
on
in.
our way out. Yeah, no, that's fine, because I can
I
walk
have
here.
one, but if I'm not here, that won't be helpful.
Yeah. No, I don't mind picking up. So, anything else?
Okay,
Oh,
so,
old business, yes.
okay, under old business, new business, monkey business, whatever. Two things on the housing front. the old schoolhouse, the conversion into eventually 10 units. That's been approved by the zoning board. That wasn't a major fight, but it had its distractors. But anyways, it went through.
Yeah, I like.
And then the other one was the other night, Mary, of course, she ran a good show there. I love it. First time I've been to the historical committee. And I might have to go back again. The Royal, over here around the corner.
We have an
And that's
update
back in
finally.
play.
Finally? Oh,
Back
They're
in
gonna
play.
do outside work.
And I had to agree with you that I was a little perplexed why they wanted why were they splitting the baby?
They wanted to do the outside work first and get it
I
over
can
with,
understand
so.
that, but something,
That's what they
you know,
did.
it doesn't protect the developer, it doesn't protect anybody, because it could be always a monkey wrench down the road, and then you spent all this money cleaning up the outside of the building, and then now you got a delay.
so wait, so the developer still owns the property and he's going to be
Yeah.
doing the outside?
He's doing the outside work.
Longfellow Builders came before us to do a certificate of non-applicability for windows, trim, paint, roof, doors.
So basically,
Excellent.
it's gonna look the same as it does now.
Outside.
With
Great.
It's gonna look a little different. It's gonna be
Yeah, 'cause it has
painted
to
yellow.
be
It's
changed.
gonna be painted yellow. It's gonna have black
Black shutters.
shutters on that which is mostly viewable from Bank Street.
Right.
It's gonna have, windows are gonna be 2/1s or 2/2s in the front on Bank Street
More uniform, right?
around the original building. And, that's all being done. They have a planning board special permit that they haven't fully acted on, so.
Yeah.
So there'll be other things they'll have to come through on.
My understanding is it's been approved for 26 units.
So what is it gonna be, 26 units? Is it
26.
affordable? Like-
No, it's gonna be one bedroom.
He had, I
At the
thought
time, I
it was
thought,
like 6.
no, at the
or
time, I
4.
thought they had suggested, there was I don't remember what the decision was. I wanna say at the time there was 1 or 2
The talking point.
affordable units.
You're right. The
But
talking
it's
point.
all planning, it's all in the planning board
Yeah.
decision, the site plan special
But
permit.
the talking point, the sweeten the, pardon the expression, the sweeten the deal to make it go smoother, the developer was willing to carve out 2 units, 1 to 2 units, that would be rented at an affordable rate, whatever he defined
Right,
affordable
but
rate.
then it went under a lawsuit, so.
Right,
now the
so they might be
lawsuit's-
pissed.
the lawsuit might be settled, so I don't know how, I don't know how.
Oh,
The
okay,
lawsuit,
so-
I heard the lawsuit was settled.
So,
We were, the planning board was sued when that site plan special permit went through. One of the neighbors, so. And I
Basically,
gather, I understand it must be resolved if they're
Yeah.
starting to move forward. I just don't know what the full resolution was.
It's gonna be 20.
I don't know if there was a
26
settlement or what it was.
One-bedroom units
that'll be great.
in the building.
That's very necessary.
So there-
And that, that doesn't have to be,
Well, it depends on how much they cost.
well, it's,
Well, that-
If
they're
they're 17,
rental.
it does matter.
Aren't they still rental?
If it's 1,700 or 2,000 or 4,000 for a one bedroom, it matters, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So
It's
how
still
do you-
housing.
It's-
Whether
I mean,
it's
it's-
affordable or not, it's still a rental
it's
unit.
still
I
housing
can't-
here in Harwich that doesn't exist today,
Right. Okay.
And,
and that's the
Progress.
caveat.
that's the kind of thing like,
Everybody
it
I know
does
that needs a can.
cost
Where
a
I
lot
can
of,
afford, I don't know about you, but.
It's, yeah.
a
but
lot of
like
people-
we talked about, there are people who could make, $2 million selling their homes that just want to stay in town and don't want to live in the big houses where they raise their kids.
Right.
That would love a one-bedroom apartment and would be happy to pay $4,000. But I mean, it's all about the more stock we can get of anything, that's important. And
The
it's
market will
not
set
gonna
the
be.
rates.
Yeah, the
But-
market.
The market will
set
set the rates.
The market will. I can't imagine that a one-bedroom in Harwich Center, maybe 4, but what I'd be more interested in is if there's any way to have any say over whether it's year-round. Or whether you're gonna have 26 Airbnbs.
You're not gonna have Airbnbs in that building.
No, that would be interviewed.
Do we don't have, and when I was in Chatham on the housing committee, we passed that zoning, that if there was, I think for every 4 units, 1 had to be affordable. We don't have anything.
We don't have an affordability requirement in our bylaw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something we would want to have, or like try to do? I mean, that's
Well,
something
that's
the housing
great.
committee
Whatever,
did.
whatever number you set, he either has an option to buy out of the option, most times, or whatever that number is, he builds up to that number. He doesn't build.
They build 3 instead of 4. They build 6 instead of 8.
It's but I'm gonna try
But
the
it's
Mary
still-
Maslowski thing that says we
It's still
passed it
housing.
and we got 1
Yeah.
here, 2 there, 1 there.
Yeah, and I agree.
What town is this?
Anything's
It
worth
was in
trying.
Chatham we did that.
And it says, and
Anyways,
its
the
rule
bill-
is what?
It was for every 4, I think it was 1, this was like in the early 2000s, but
So
I
for
can't-
every
we just worked
4.
with the town planner and the developer.
I mean, if we did that for every developer in Harwich, just, for every 4 things you build, you have to build 1. We'd have more houses and more, I mean, how much,
Well, like,
certain developers
if
are making
they're
a fortune in
building-
Harwich right now.
yeah, like the old Dino's up top, right? If
Right.
it was that, yeah, maybe they would have gone to 3, but if it's the place over
Well,
by
when-
Heather's
when-
Airport,
yeah.
are those gonna be apartments? If those are gonna be, it's pretty big,
Right.
there's gonna be more than 4, they're not gonna wanna make 3.
Well, the one when they tore down Dino's was supposed to be.
Well,
We were all
there's gonna
told it
another
was
one
gonna
in
be
town.
not capital A affordable, but it
Oh,
was.
I never heard that.
Oh, I did, that's.
And I was involved in that permitting from the
Really? I
beginning.
heard that's
was-
why they allowed them to build in the front and not in the back.
No, the building in the front was all about our village center overlay district and making a streetscape in the village centers. It's why 711 Main Street is up on the street. It's why that building was built up to the street. It's all about the overlay district.
Oh, okay, cool. So
can we
anyway,
add
well, that's
zoning
good
bylaw
news.
to our agenda for,
Sure.
Yeah,
Just to
let's
talk about it?
discuss that and maybe some other bylaws. In fact, yeah, put in a general bylaw, because I would like to talk about
Yarmouth has
Vale
has
Indeed.
Yarmouth has an affordable component in their ADU bylaw.
oh, nice.
And I
I don't
want
know
to,
how
yeah.
effective it is, but
And right now, Sarah and Julian are pushing a bill through, or they will be shortly, when the time is right, to change just one little bit of a law so that we could do the Vale Indeed program. So I would like to talk about that. All right, anything else?
I'm gonna give you that just because I threw that zoning on it.
Terrific.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you all.